The modern colloquial use of the term Stoicism is a miscategorization insofar as how it's used to describe a person who is cold, unemotional, or robotic. And I'll admit it, because of the way people use the term, I was a bit hesitant towards the topic before I decided to study it. But boy was I wrong. This knowledge has helped me frame my own existence and has affected how I navigate throughout daily life significantly, and I'm sure it'll do the same for you too. I'm convinced that it outlines the best way in which we as individuals in modern society should live our lives. So make sure that you watch it all the way to the end to soak up all of the knowledge that will be brought forth in a creative way throughout the video. I'll also explain how it first came to be and the great people who brought it into popularity, as it in part stems from the last video on Socratic philosophy. But before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe in order to help my channel grow. With that being said, let's get into it. Just like in modern society, the most primary concern of the citizens of ancient Greece and Rome was the avoidance of an unsatisfactory and unfortunate life. The general Greek hypothesis in response to this undying question, thanks to people like Socrates, was that enduring happiness and tranquility stems from living life virtuously. After the death of Socrates, his wisdom and knowledge broke off and spawned into many different schools of thought such as Cynicism, Epicureanism, and Stoicism. Stoicism was founded in Athens by a shipwrecked Phoenician merchant by the name of Zeno of Citium in around 301 BC, who was seeking to make use of his unfortunate circumstance. The philosophy was initially named Zenonism, but was later changed to Stoicism. This is because the people that came to study this school of thought met publicly on the porch of a popular building in Athens. These architectural structures, described as porches, were called stoa in the Greek language. This philosophical tradition thrived for many centuries, but eventually declined into obscurity due to the fall of the Greek Empire. Luckily, many Stoic texts survived and were brought back into prominence in Rome thanks to three main important individuals. One being Seneca, the tutor of the infamous psychopath and Roman Emperor Nero, who later unfortunately made him commit suicide. Seneca was well known as a philosopher, a merchant, and as the best playwright in Rome. The second important Stoic philosopher was Epictetus, who was born a slave but after being free, utilized the free nature of Roman citizenship in order to found his own school of philosophy. He taught many of Rome's greatest minds, including the next important figure of Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius is considered the last good emperor of Rome and was a somewhat prophetic manifestation of Socrates' concept of the philosopher king. In between his time being the most powerful man in the known world, he wrote the book titled Meditations, which is the most significant source of Stoic philosophy till this day. Thanks to these men, we have the foundations of the philosophy of Stoicism, which has helped improve the lives of many people throughout the centuries, and going forward, I will introduce you to its main principles. Number 1 is to be mindful. Mindfulness is the prerequisite to learning Stoicism because you need to be aware of your thoughts and actions before you can control them. Contrary to popular belief, Stoicism isn't about suppressing your emotions or the cessation of emotions altogether. This is impossible. Rather, it's about taking note of and carefully examining them to see if they're worth acting upon or not. When you live an unexamined life, you run the risk of causing more damage than is necessary. You are also defying nature by doing so, insofar as that the universe created you to not be an animal alone, but a rational animal. Therefore, you should act accordingly. The Stoic sense of mindfulness also includes setting daily goals and making sure that you live life with a purpose instead of aimlessly. Number 2 is to take action. You cannot obtain tranquility by studying Stoicism or philosophy in general alone. You must go into the real world and put them into practice. This knowledge is meant to guide you when you take action, not pepper your mind with positive encouragement to justify your meager existence. Stoicism teaches us that we should be indifferent to things out of our control and that our own actions are the only thing that we can truly control. Therefore, we should utilize this power to the fullest in a virtuous manner. In ancient times, philosophers were considered warriors of the mind, one who fights eternal battles for the sake of self-mastery. Stoics were doers. Number 3 is to live life in agreement with nature. The ultimate goal in life in Stoicism is eudaimonia, which means supreme happiness and fulfillment. Like mentioned before, humans are separated from all other animals due to our capacity to be rational. When we act irrationally, we are defying our true nature. In order to live in agreement with nature, we must behave rationally in all of our actions rather than out of passion like a beast would. This also includes behaving in the manner of a sheep, following rules and paths set out for us without first considering morality in our individuality. Number 4 is to live by virtue. The way that we are to live in agreement with nature, more specifically, is to live by virtue. Virtue is considered the highest good in Stoicism. The four cardinal virtues are wisdom and prudence, justice and fairness, courage and fortitude, and self-discipline and temperance. When you live by those virtues, you will automatically move towards a good life. Your own character is all that you can control, therefore by putting them to use positively, you higher your chances of obtaining positive results. Number 5 is to focus on what you can control and to accept what you can't. Epictetus said, "Make the use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Some things are up to us and some things are not up to us." With that being said, we must always carefully distinguish what is in our control and what is not. All we can control is our actions, therefore we should either be content that we tried our best or discontent that we didn't try our best. Either way, the blame should be placed on our own selves and we should be indifferent because the given circumstances or outcome was out of our control. It's like an archer who is trying to hit a target. He can train very hard, but at the end of the day, once he releases the arrow from the bow, it is out of his control and subject to external factors. In other words, it's either up to you or it's none of your business. For example, I do my best to make good videos, title, tag, and share them properly, but once I put it out, it's out of my control how many people view it or not. Number 6 is to turn obstacles into opportunities. Perception is how we observe what happens around us and what we decide that they mean. Or perception can either bind us and hold us back, or can strengthen us to push forward. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are pained by an external thing, it is not that thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. And it is in your power to wipe out this judgment now." This makes us responsible for our lives. We can choose to see the external things that we can't control as obstacles or as opportunities to utilize virtue. What Stoics try to do is to not get carried away by our initial impressions, but to instead accept them objectively and then find the best way to look at it. You can see everything as an opportunity to practice virtue. For example, if you have an annoying younger sibling, you can look at them as pests, or you can look at them as a perfect partner to practice patience, fairness, and kindness with. Number 7 is to love everything that happens. If something happens to us that we wish didn't, it's easy to get caught up in our own opinion of it rather than to accept the event itself. Stoicism calls this the art of acquiescence, which means to accept rather than fight every little thing. The first step is to be okay with the fact that we don't control everything that happens and that whatever happens is okay. It's someone else who makes the weather. We must simply adapt and accept it. The second step is not to only accept it, but to love it. You can get mad at the sky for raining, or you can see it as an opportunity to play in it and be happy that the plants are being watered. What helps is this. Think of a greater power that spins the world and decides on everything that happens. And all of the events, whether desired or unexpected, happen specifically for you. At the moment when something happens, it may feel wrong, but it serves something greater that you do not yet understand, and in the end, will benefit you. For this is usually the case. Number 8 is to practice misfortune. Just like we use vaccines to fend off viruses that may attempt to harm us in the future, Stoics practice misfortune to mentally prepare for bad things that may happen. Another main reason for practicing Stoicism is to mentally prepare for adversity. Of course, it's crazy to want to face difficulty in life, but it's equally crazy to think that it isn't going to happen. We must prepare for difficulty to happen so that we'll be ready to face it rather than get surprised by it. You must always be aware of what could go wrong so that you never get caught off guard and become devastated. Number 9 is to add a reserve clause to plans. Do your very best to succeed and simultaneously accept that the outcome is out of your control. Seneca defines the reserve clause with this quote, "I do such and such as long as nothing happens which may present an obstacle to my decision." Elsewhere, he gives the example of, "I will sail across the ocean if nothing prevents me." According to Stoicism, the key is to simultaneously, number 1, do your very best, number 2, know that results are out of your control, 3, accept whatever happens, and 4, continue to act in accordance with virtue. In sports, you may hear this attitude described as the process. You train the hardest you can, and on game day, your goal is not to win, but to do your very best, because winning is out of your control, but how hard you practice your craft is in your control. Lastly, number 10 is to distinguish between good, bad, and indifference. The good things include the cardinal virtues. The bad things include the opposite of these virtues, namely the 4 vices, which are folly, injustice, cowardice, and indulgence. Indifferent things include everything else, but mainly life and death, fame and bad reputation, pleasure and pain, wealth and poverty, and health and sickness. Basically, indifferent things do not impact your ability to live a good and virtuous life. Of course, there are positive indifferent things and negative ones too, but they should be both treated with disregard due to their lack of impact on human happiness. Life is all about your behavior, period, so be virtuous and therefore invite goodness into your existence. By following these principles and applying them to what you deem as your life's purpose, you will undoubtedly move towards tranquility and fulfillment. But don't forget that ultimately and perpetually, you will face circumstances that are out of your control. Try your best to invite these circumstances and use them as a means to practice being stoic. In order to integrate these principles into your life, I suggest that you pick each individual one daily until all of them become your natural way of being. But with that being said, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and added the knowledge to your own philosophical lexicon, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.